Elon's like one of the most prolific entrepreneurs in the world, and you were part of his AI team. And now you've jumped from that AI team to the physical world of AI, which is like a pretty big leap. So can you tell me a bit about what sort of got you that conviction to jump and build your own company?
Yeah, absolutely. You can actually achieve things if you set your mind up to it. And if you don't have any constraints, as Elon says, physics is the only constraint that you have. You will get the money to do this project. You will get the resources to do this project. Just push your limits. And if you push your limits and believe that you can do it, then you can achieve anything.
With humanoid forms of robots coming, am I right in assuming that 70 to 80% of society we think will transition out of the current jobs they have?
I think that humans will always have to adapt and learn and rethink and even like learn new skills, right? So this is same like what happened when cars took over horse carriage. Everyone was like, oh my God, that's taking away a lot of jobs. It's like disrupting the entire industry and the entire world is going down, right? But what happened? Like the car industry was like 100 times, 1,000 times more massive than the horse industry ever was, right?
Yeah. Can you talk a bit about the Chinese-US either like tension or competition?
Yeah. As of today, as of 2025, China is far ahead in the robotics race than US ever is, right? Because one of the main things that you need with hardware robotics is that manufacturing plants, right? And China is really good at manufacturing stuff at a very cheaper cost. UB Tech recently launched like a mass-produced like 10,000 robots, right? That's crazy. Like no other US company has done that.
What's something that you're publicly able to talk about from interacting with Elon?
Yeah, so
well, welcome to Not Another Pod. Thanks for coming on, Anto.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure being here.
So I have a pretty good opening question for you because I think your career has been really exceptional. Elon's like one of the most prolific entrepreneurs in the world, and you were part of his AI team. And now you've jumped from that AI team to the physical world of AI, which is like a pretty big leap. So can you tell me a bit about what sort of got you that conviction to jump and build your own company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been building robots from the age of 7. So it's not like right now I jumped into robotics. So my mom is a physics teacher and my dad is a math major. I used to come back from school, steal my mom's textbooks and started building robots from very young age, right? I remember at the age of 17, I built this smart electricity generator which can generate electricity on the ocean seafloor. And that was kind of the main projects that I did before in my high school. Went to college to do my engineering and all those kind of stuff. I almost got kicked out of my dorm room because I had like my bed was filled with grinding and drilling irons and like soldering and PCBs and all that, right? There was one day that the entire power of the entire dorm got shut down because we kind of like using all the power. And one of the products that I was building like hardware, software products, right? One of the products that I built in my college undergrad actually kicked off and it became big. A lot of investors came in and sold that to the military. It was like a smart water bottle that could monitor electrolytes for athletes, right?
Cool.
So this technology was useful by the soldiers. When they're active in the fields, they can monitor the electrolytes and all these kind of stuff, right? Then I was like, okay, I graduated from undergrad. There was a middle ground there where I went to the Himalayas for 3 months to find meaning of life. But after that, I went back to school, then, do my business and started working in NASA in robotics. So I have always been in robotics. That's something that I want to say, right? And I was like, okay, now Elon is very bullish on Optimus. Optimus is going to change the world. As Elon says, it's going to be a $250 trillion economy, right? 100 times bigger than the entire AI space. And that's hard to miss. Like I was like, okay, if I don't quit my job right now and start working on robotics, I will never be on top of this game. And I don't want to miss out on this kind of like robotics field, right? So that's one of the reasons I quit my job. I was like, okay, there is a pivotal moment that's happening in 2025 because the maximum amount of research in diffusion models, vision language models, world models, like everything that has to do with physical AI changed in 2025. And I took all this research, brought it with me, and actually started CosmicBrain AI, which is the company that I'm working on. And that's why I'm in physical AI space.
That's so cool. What a cool time to be alive.
Absolutely.
Robots, aliens. We're obviously, I wish we were a podcast about robots and aliens, but we're more about founder topics. And so you worked with one of the most prolific entrepreneurs of our lifetime. What were some core values of entrepreneurship did you pick up from while working at XAI, and that you've sort of like brought into your current business?
Yeah, so working in like a very intense AI company is like very crucial at this day and age, I would say, right? So I would have got job at Google or Microsoft anywhere else, right? But working at like these few AI companies like XAI and all that is kind of like comprising 10 years of experience into 1 year, right? Because people are doing the impossible. The team at
Yes.
XAI is doing impossible stuff, right? Building the 100,000 closest project, like 100,000 GPU clusters is no joke. And Elon did that in 100 days, which
Yeah.
is crazy.
To toot your horn for you, for the people that don't know, Grok's benchmarking is incredible. It's outpacing a lot of OpenAI, Gemini, and other large foundational models. And the time that the team was able to build the infrastructure, train the models, and deliver it to market is crazy. It's
Absolutely.
basically like light speed compared to what has been in market. So, what were some core principles around like that philosophy? Like, obviously that has to be really there has to be a special culture that built that.
Yeah.
What's some of the entrepreneurial DNA that
Yeah.
helped deliver that outcome?
Yeah, it's all about deconstructuring the hierarchy in companies and fighting for what is not normal, right?
Yeah.
So if something, you can actually achieve things if you set your mind up to it, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have any constraints. So as Elon says, physics is the only constraint that you have. You will get the money to do this project. You will get the resources to do this project. Just push your limits. And if you push your limits and believe that you can do it, then you can achieve anything. And like especially for the Colossus project, right? OpenAI took almost 2 years to do half the size of that GPU clusters, right? But a smaller team, a company that's maybe like 10% of the time that existed as OpenAI, uh, did that in 100 days, which is like crazy. Like no one would have ever thought of that. Like, and there's a lot of things that went wrong in Memphis as well. Like the entire power of Memphis city got shut down.
Yeah.
You had to change, power the closest projects with the Tesla mega packs and run the AI on top of that. So overcoming those challenges, obstacles right away rather than waiting for the next board meeting or presenting it to your manager and all these kind of stuff and directly talking to Elon was the way to go. And that's how like the engineers were able to do it.
That's so cool. He's such like an engineering first entrepreneur as well. What's something that you're publicly able to talk about that has stuck with you from interacting with Elon?
Yeah, so he's a big visionary and he believes he's the one guy, that one person on this planet who has the right amount of resources and is geeked enough to achieve the impossible, right? Usually you'll find these kind of people probably in colleges and when you're doing in your campus life, you're always optimistic. Oh, I want to find alien lives. I want to create rockets that can be extra planetary and all these kind of stuff, right? But as an adult, when real life comes to you, a lot of people forget their ambitions and dreams. But thank God we have Elon, who's actually working on these kind of dreams that we always thought we should do. But he's actually making that possible. So that's something that I really, really admire of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably motivated the vast majority of a generation of entrepreneurs out there. Like, I know he's like motivated me personally. I'm like, dude, this guy's putting rockets into space and space internet. Like, okay, like I can, building software isn't that hard.
Yeah.
Is there anything that that would surprise people about a first principle or thing from NASA to XAI that you've picked up from those backgrounds? Because I think those are two prolific companies, and that's quite the resume. So, like, what's a first principle that you think would surprise people from that background?
Yeah, so I would say for me, the way I look at things is kind of different from what usual people look at, So when I see a problem, I first assume that, hey, like, how can we actually reverse track this? Okay, this is the achievable goal. This is the achievable output that we need to get from this. How can I backtrack it and make this actually possible? Rather than most of the engineering teams say, oh my God, this is impossible. Because there are a lot of things out there, especially with AI, which people have never done before, right? And if you look at the past and what people have done before in other companies, you will always be demotivated. You will never be an optimist, right? So always look at problems with an optimistic sense and try to find the underlying issue and how to solve it, and also find the right people to solve that issue. If you choose the right people on a project, that project is definitely going to succeed. So it's about the people, it's about the thinking mentality on how you tackle that project and achieve the impossible outcome. So these are the metrics that I definitely look.
I think a lot of folks are asking questions around why humanoid robots versus robots of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I don't know if it was Anduril or someone else, but they were doing non-humanoid robots in the war in Ukraine and stuff, and the military applications of that. Why humanoid robots versus not, or is it a both?
Yeah. So this is a question that I get all the time, right? So robots can come in any form factor, right? So one of the primary examples is, why are we building a humanoid to wash our dishes when we already have a dishwasher robot in our houses already, right?
Mhm.
And that can wash dishes for you, right? So not every application out there actually requires a humanoid form. But there are situations where you need a human form to walk around. For example, most of our factories and workspaces are designed for humans. There are stairs, there are tables, there are chairs, there are stations where you
Yep.
pick and place, assemble things. You have to move around a lot, right? And there are a lot of rough surfaces as well. Like most of the times, a wheeled robot cannot go to different places. That's why humanoids can help, right?
Yep.
But there are also situations, for example, construction, right? So if you create a robot that's kind of like a peacock or an ostrich or like a giraffe, you can actually have a longer neck to pick up objects and heavier objects, right? So you don't necessarily need a humanoid form factor. So I would say it's kind of like the animal kingdom, right? You will see robots in all form factor depending on the use case and depending on the application.
That's interesting. I like the framing of that. So why and I don't think you have inside knowledge on this, but like if you were to hypothesize why Elon's going after Optimus as a huge investment instead of like other types of robotics, or I think yesterday someone said the Cybertruck is like the best robot out there in the market, and Elon's like, yeah, thank you. Like why is he building Optimus versus other types of like robotics, or is it the same thing inside of the Elon Musk
Yeah.
universe?
So for the first time in the history of humanity, we are actually created intelligence, artificial intelligence,
Yes.
AI, right? And again, for the first time, you're actually putting this artificial intelligence into a human form, which is humanoids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of things we can learn from it. Creating a humanoid is not a joke. It's like one of the most difficult things there is, right?
Yeah.
Even so, training a humanoid even to stand up, to walk, is just like training a kid. Like if you have your kid, it will first like observe what's out there, understand the physics of the real world.
Yeah.
First learn to stand up, then try to walk, then try to run, right? So the robots are the same. So in order to train these robots, understand the physics, understand materialistic, different materials, different textures, patterns, and all these kind of stuff, itself is a learning curve. Once we achieve this humanoid form factor, then transferring that to other form factors will be kind of like a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. So there's initially, we are not, most of our work environments are not adapted to any other form factor robots as well. So today, if you want a robot in your restaurant making boba tea for you or make pizza for you, you actually need a humanoid. Like the humanoid can walk around to and serve people, come back, put pepperoni on top of the pizza, put the sauce and put it in the oven, do everything the human does. So the entry to the market is definitely a humanoid version, that I would say, even factories and in regular people workshops.
So with humanoid forms of robots coming, super advanced AI happening, we could like debate the curve of AGI, but I think if we were looking at if we were looking in the 90s at what we had today, we'd probably be like, oh, that's AGI. And it's like not quite that. But like we clearly have very advanced AIs, very advanced robotics. I think we're already seeing like job stagnation because of it in white collar spaces. Humanoid robotics is going to go after the other types of jobs that are, maybe more in the physical world. Does capitalism need to change? Or do you think new jobs will come from this? Or are we going to go to like a 3-day work week? Like what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you asking specifically about the AGI question?
I'm
Or-
asking more about so we know AI is going to get better and better,
Mhm.
and then we know that'll go into a human form factor of a robot.
Mhm.
So like we all go right now, most of society wakes up in the morning and goes and either works as a barista or like works as a banker or works as an accountant or a lawyer. And like on the physical services side, I can see very easily how 70 to 80% of that is just going to be taken away by some sort of applied AI or
Mhm.
AI services. But now you're saying like, okay, there's physical humanoid robots that are going to have AI in them. So like, okay, like people making boba tea now, like we don't need humans to make boba tea
Mhm.
at the coffee shop down the
Yeah.
corner. So I'm basically asking like, am I right in assuming that 70 to 80% of society we think will transition out of the current jobs they have? And like, does our system need to change? Or do you think that like more jobs will come from this whole thing because we're basically increasing productivity, increasing
Mhm.
output?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think that humans will always have to adapt and learn and
Yeah.
rethink and even like learn new skills, right? So this is same like what happened when cars took over horse carriages, right?
Yes.
So there was a big industry with horses. There were like businesses which is
Yeah.
cleaning horses, braiding horse hair to like building like the wooden wheels for horse carts, right?
Yeah.
But when cars came out, everyone was like, "Oh my god, that's taking away a lot of jobs. It's like disrupting the entire industry and the entire world is going down, right?" But what happened? Like the car industry was like 100 times, 1,000 times more massive than the horse industry ever was, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of problems were also getting solved. And there was other side industry like construction, where you had to plan roads and
Yeah.
railways and all these kind of things came out of like the automobile industry, right? So the robotics industry is going to be the same, and the AI industry is going to be the exactly same as well. So there is definitely a shift, and the shift is definitely hard because
Mm.
as humans, it's very, very difficult for us to retrain ourselves and rethink because
Yeah.
we are used to our normal lives. No one wants to change, right? But unless you make that change, you're definitely going to be stuck in the past. So the robotics industry is going to the biggest industry the world has ever seen. It's a $250 trillion economy. And that means there's like 100 times more opportunities that's going to come up than any other industry that ever existed in the entire lifespan of humanity, right? That
That's
means,
crazy.
yeah, exactly. That means that even your high school kid can start repairing robots in their bedrooms or in their
Yeah.
dorm rooms and start making money. You don't need a garage like car or automobile to repair things, right? You can tomorrow Optimus broke down. Oh, bring it to me. I can have this online service. Let me do a paint job, like
Yeah.
paint Optimus in different ways. That let me like create the spare parts for these robots, like and even servicing these robots, right? Let me train this robot to make boba tea for you. Even skills in
Yeah.
marketplaces, right? There's a ton of different opportunities that will definitely emerge out of this, and it is going to be incredible. Like it is going to be easier to make money than ever before because you don't have to do much of physical labor. You don't have to do much of like anything. Rather, you can do this in your bedroom or in your constrained
Yep.
environments and make a ton of money with it. So yeah.
That's so cool. It reminds me a bit of like, I don't know if you ever heard the story, but someone was forecasting back in the day when there was horses in London, I think. They thought they did the math and they're like, oh my God, we're going to have like horse shit up to like 9 feet high by this time because of our population and the number of horses. And then like the automobile was invented and then it was like, okay, like that's not really a problem anymore.
Yeah.
Or like another one that's my favorite is someone was doing the math on the railroad and they're like, there's no way we could ever maintain a railway from the East Coast to the West Coast because the trees would rot under the railroad by the time. And then they invented the like black stuff that they like soak railroad ties in to like preserve the railroad tie.
Yeah.
And it totally like messed up the math. And so I just find that like we're always like perfectly wrong as humans when we're trying to like predict the future
Very
around
much.
like, because we're so biased from our existing tech
Yes.
stack that we can't even understand the future of what is possible with the new tech stack.
Yes.
And so yeah,
People
I love that
have to be
story.
optimistic about technology. If you're not optimistic about technology, humanity is not going to improve. If we actually want to be a multiplanetary species, if you
Yes.
want to colonize different planets and set up foot out there, right? We need to encourage people building technology, rewiring their brains, and reskilling and upskilling people,
Yeah.
right? And that's the way to go. When media says, "Oh my God," like I feel like the entire mainstream media is against technology. Whenever I read a headline, right? So there was an incident in SF recently where one of the media's, one of the Waymos actually ran over a cat, right?
Yeah.
And the media was like, "You should ban Waymos." Like full autonomous driving should not exist anymore.
Yeah.
Autonomous driving cars are one of the miracles of the modern world.
Yeah.
It's super difficult to create a car that can drive itself.
Yeah.
But for the car to drive over a cat and you banning that entire technology, I don't think that's the right way to go.
Yeah.
There are people getting killed by fentanyl and SF, like almost humans are killing other humans.
Well, also like a certain rate of humans die in car crashes and things like that as well. I think we tend to overreact and overregulate when things like that happen. And that's why it's important to have like a good innovative posture. From my view, whether you go all the way back to like Charles Mathis, he thought we literally were going to run out of food because our population was going to increase.
Exactly.
And they didn't properly forecast like fertilizers and soil enrichment technology and that sort of stuff. So I think technology is our savior and is the thing that we're very good at as a species. And so, for me, I'm always very focused on having supporting entrepreneurship, supporting that type of stuff. But I think with all this, like, we definitely want safety, right? Like
very much. Yeah.
Like I've seen enough of all the cool robot sci-fi movies to know I want the happy robots, like the Bicentennial Man, not the like Terminator.
That's the right way to go. I think we need more safety regulations around robotics, but that will not come from a pessimistic view. It will come from an optimistic view. Oh, I need to encourage building this technology. I need to advancements of AI and robotics. And how can I make this as human-friendly as possible, right? So NVIDIA in itself, like their foundation models for physical AI has over 1 million guardrails, right?
Yeah.
From a humanoid interacting with a human, how it can interact in a work environment versus a domestic home, all these kind of stuff, right? And eventually we will even see 10 commandments come out of for humanoid, just like how it's in the Bible. So,
or Isaac Asimov, right?
Exactly.
Like the laws of robotics.
Very much.
But you got to watch out for the 0th law, right?
Yes.
Inside joke. For those of you that know robotics, the 0th law, it roots all the other laws. And then I won't spoil Foundation, but it's a great book and great show. So
yeah, very much.
So one of my favorite authors is Isaac Asimov. And I think he's like the sci-fi guy around robotics. So you have to be a bit of a fan.
Tell me about it. Like tell me, how are you fascinated by the world of physical AI?
There's so much in sci-fi. There's a lot of pessimism around robots, but I grew up with I love Star Trek, love Star Wars. So it's like the non-physical AI was the computer in Star Trek that was like helpful. In Star Wars, there was the friendly robots that were funny, and I liked all the more positive end of this. I did love Terminator, but for me, Isaac Asimov was incredibly thoughtful about like the psychological design of robots. And so when you watch iRobot, or you go and read Foundation or watch the interpretation of the book of the Foundation, I think it makes robots real sentient beings. And in the same way with AI, it's like, at what point are we creating life or replicating life? And if we can perfectly copy sentience, is that not sentience? And so in a way, you're using human action. You are, with your current company, using human actions to train physical robots. You're maybe creating the building blocks for a future species or a future sentient robot. I don't know if species is the right term, but how do you think about the ethics of human training on physical robotics? And like what are some challenges in the space? Where do you think we're going to end out? This is are we going to have Skynet question, or are these gonna like what are your concerns and thoughts about
absolutely
training robots?
This is the main idea, fundamental problem we are solving at CosmicBrain, right? So there are 3 challenges with robotics. One is the data is very limited. There you need a ton of coding experience, like a PhD level experience, to actually program robots. The third thing is that the hardware has to improve. Like the hardware, like even building the hardware of every actuator, every sensors, 5-finger dexterity arms, everything is super difficult, right? So solving this one by one. So at CosmicBrain, what we're doing is that we are solving the data problem, right? So AI, when ChatGPT was built, when Grok was built, you had all the data on the internet. And internet has all this video data, all this like textual data, almost all the manuscripts and all the libraries out there, right? And that's why AI is very good. But when it comes to robotics, you only have YouTube videos, and YouTube videos are not that good, right?
Yeah.
So how can we collect data from across the world? We need people working in factories, from textile industries to iPhone factories in China to electricians to plumbers to carpenters, right? So one of the ways to collect those data is by encouraging people, incentivizing people using either crypto or some other things to collect data for robotics. Once you get this data, then you can definitely use this real world data to train foundation models that can be input into the brain of these robots. Another thing is that, so everyone is trying to create world models, right? As if like the robots can enter a game, for example, Call of Duty or GTA, walk around and train itself. But the problem there is that the physics in virtual environments or world models are not good enough. Or what happens if a glass falls down and the floor turns slippery, right? How does the robot recognize then and go against the coefficient of friction? Or catching a marshmallow versus a steel block, right? So these kind of like pressure physics are not available in world models. So we need data of real people, right? The second thing is that how can we enable the hardware to be cheaper, right? So 2 weeks before, China released robotic arms, so it's like less than $300, right?
Yeah.
Which is like super cheap. Like Boston Dynamics is still selling robots for $100,000. Crazy.
Yeah, robots are getting T-Mood, man.
Exactly. So the hardware has to go down, right? So that's one of the other ways we can collect data and test out this data on real world applications, right? If there's a pizza store in New York which wants to have at least a robot for research purposes, we are more than happy to put that robot out there, put some pepperoni topping and make it work like 24/7 and see how it goes. So we learn from mistakes.
So that's sort of why Neo is offering a relatively low price point for their humanoid robot, but then they're having humans remote into it because they're building the underlying data set, which is the actual asset along the hardware asset.
Yes, very much. So yeah, and I think Neo's, even the business plan is incredible. They're doing more a subscription plan for $500 per month. You can get all these like journalist skills, right? Initially, it might be teleoperated. So if you look at the car industry, right? When Waymo came out, Waymo took almost 14 years to train its cars on the streets of SF before it actually publicly launched. 14 years.
And then scale was a major trainer behind it.
Very much. And you need data, right? So, and there's no other way you can get this data other than drive the Waymo on the road, right? And, learn from mistakes. And it's like a single skill set. Driving is a single massive skill. But when it comes to humanoid robots, there's like thousands of skills that humans do, right? So we cannot replicate the scenario of Waymo's or car industry here, right? It will take 100 years for us. Another thing is that you cannot actually deploy hardware on premise. And let's say I deploy a robot to be a plumber, electrician, carpenter, right? And wait for 20, 30 years to them to collect the data and bring back to me. That's also another big bottleneck. What we can do is capture humans at their essence, right? Capture human data, and we need to figure out a way to convert this human data directly to the robots. So, and there are almost 7 billion humans in the planet. If we all do a collective effort, we can actually collect all the data in this world and replicate all these jobs using humanoids. So that's the way in which the industry is currently progressing. That's what research labs are doing. That's what academic institutions are doing, and we are seeing immense amount of progress in this field right now.
So do you think that there will be eventually a labor marketplace where if you're, let's say, the best excavator operator, you can get paid to just remote into your Oculus and operate your excavator?
Absolutely.
And then you're eventually going to start training excavators globally?
Absolutely. So you get like paid 2 times, right?
That's
can do your regular job, or if you just wear a smart glasses on top of that, at least a Meta Ray-Bans, and collect all this data. And right now we also have a marketplace. Like this is the first time in the world, like we are launching a marketplace for data exchange and for robot skills. So you can upload this data and we will pay you money for doing it, right? So that's the way that you can capture and earn money on top of your already like ordinary extra job that you're doing every day.
So if you're just a plumber, you could wear your Meta Ray-Bans, record it, and then boom, you'd be training some plumber robots.
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are you, is it all sorts of industries, or could, like, obviously I know there's regulations around this, but would you get into like the medical surgeon space? So like a friend of mine, is a surgeon, and I know the New York hospital system is starting to do robotic surgeries, but they have to be on like a physical T1 line because if there's like any lag, it's obviously hugely risky, and then they have other doctors in the room to step in case the robot like times out? Like, are you staying in certain industries?
We are not going in the medical industry as of today, but
Yeah.
that's already being done. But there's a company called Intuit which created Da Vinci robots, which are automating entire surgeries, right? So
Yeah.
an entire automated robot, like not even human supervised, automated robot did a complete heart transplant this year, right? Just
That's
crazy.
so cool. I want the. Have you seen the pod from Prometheus?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Google or just like YouTube,
Okay.
the like surgery pod from Prometheus.
Okay.
And like they take the alien out of her, and it's like a horror scene. But it's so cool because like you just get in this pod, and then it's like, and like
Yeah.
it's like detected a mass. Would you like me to take out the mass? And she's like, sure.
Yeah, exactly. So those companies who are working on those robots will need to collect surgical data, right?
Yeah.
So there are already cameras in all the surgical units out there in every surgical room.
Yeah.
I would say. So yeah, so Intuit is definitely collecting, or like these companies are collecting those data and training on top of that. But for a company like ours to do that, well, we don't want to go through the FDA regulations and all these like
HIPAA,
exactly,
all that fun
HIPAA,
stuff.
we don't want to do
How do you? So if I wear Ray-Bans, or I used to do some excavation stuff because my dad used to sell heavy machinery. So like, I grew up in that field. How do you get pressure data? Because I could see like from a video or Ray-Bans, you could obviously get spatial data and infer spatial data, but how do you get pressure data?
Yeah. So there are two metrics here, right? So one thing, so almost 90% of the thing that a robot can understand is visual, right?
Yeah.
Because robots don't have something called the skin that humans have. So it's because of the skin, this large organ in our body, we can actually sense pressure and all these kind of stuff, right? And it's impossible for right now with the given market, it's impossible for us to deploy sensors into every robot arm out there. That will increase the price of the hardware by a lot, and that's crazy, right? So right now we're doing a lot of things in the visual space. So even like two spatial cameras can coincide each other to detect the distance between objects. The density of objects. You can use LiDAR to know how the thickness of these objects and all that, right? This data can be fed into the robot and be translated into actions using vision language action models or foundation models. The second thing layer on top of that is the foundation models in itself. Like LLMs, we have like foundation embodied AI foundation models, right? So if the robot, for example, it picks up an egg, right? The first time the robot cracks the egg, it will learn from mistakes, right? Just the way humans learn, right? So next time when it picks up the egg, it will apply a slightly lesser pressure, right? So it'll learn from error correction. So there'll be like a training period for robots in every factory to deal with the objects that humans are dealing with every day. And it will see, observe, learn from mistakes, and eventually become like error-free. So that's the way even the robots can understand pressure of the real world and interact with the objects humans are dealing with.
That's smart. You mentioned China earlier about releasing a very cheap robot arm. In the AI rate, I have a couple questions on the China-US dynamic. The first is, have you been able to check out Kimi yet? Like their another open source model out of China?
No,
I think so. It's brand new, but similar in the vein of like DeepSeek, where the underlying benchmarks apparently are quite good and quite competitive with like the large foundational models in the US. So can you talk a bit about the Chinese-US either like tension or competition that you see in both the foundational AI space? And then I'd love to know how you think that translates into the robotics field and like physical robotics field.
So one of the main things that you need with hardware robotics is that manufacturing plants, right? And China is really good at manufacturing stuff at a very cheaper cost, right? And that's one of the reasons as of today, as of 2025, China is far ahead in the robotics race than US ever is, right? Because China is the only company mass producing robots which you can actually purchase as of today, right? There is no US company where you can buy robots from. Bosch Dynamics sells the robots for $100,000. That's a robot dog, and that's very expensive, right? And like UB Tech recently launched like a mass produced like 10,000 robots, right? That's crazy. Like no other US company has done that. Even in the software layer, China is definitely catching up with us. Like we have been dominating the software layer, the physical intelligence side of things for a long time. Right?
Benchmarking is catching up, and they don't have as good access to foundational chips.
Exactly.
And so like that's super problematic, right?
Yeah. And another thing is that one of the things with the AI race was that we were collaborating with each other. Like every AI research lab, everything was open source. So almost every engineer in the US were able to play around with machine learning, deep learning AI to create OpenAI. What OpenAI is as of today was born out of attention is all you need paper. And every Anthropic and every company came out of this open source structure, right? But China is following the same route in the physical AI side of things. Like almost all their robots, Unitree is open source, UbiTech is going to be open source. Like, and they want to encourage the same thing that the US has been doing in AI. But on the other end, the US physical AI market is very fragmented as of today. Every company is closed source. Everyone is doing their own stuff, which is I don't think that's the right way to do. And I believe that as long as the people don't open source their work in the US, especially when it comes to robotics, we are gonna lag behind. And we need to do that as quickly as possible.
So what would be the one or two biggest policy recommendations you'd make to supercharge the US robotics market?
There's different layers to it, right? The first thing is like make everything like out there open source, make it encourage people to build on top of that, encourage people to, even build hardware. Open source hardware is also great. And K-Scale, and a company which got recently shut down because they were open source, because it's the US, like investors don't want to pay money for it. They were like open source hardware company, which anyone can, take the tech stack, 3D print the robot, and start making a humanoid robot right away, right? The other thing is that the VC space, the VC network, the venture capitalist network in the US is very pessimistic about robotics, even today. Wow. They think that robotics is not the future. It's still 50. There are some investors who told me, "Oh, robotics is still 50 years away." No, it's not. So that's another thing that has to change. If we don't get proper funding for robotic startups, the US is going to lose the game. Like China is investing heavily. Like almost all the investments even in the US companies actually came from Saudi Arabia or China or some other Asian countries. And their investors were bullish on American robotics than our own investors. So the entire VC landscape also has to change and be very optimistic about the space and encourage founders to build.
Yeah, it's so funny with the VC industry because it's clearly the purpose is to give you more capital than what you need to get complete outlier bets on like moonshot things. But then just like ridiculous SaaS companies continue to be backed when the whole like tech moat layer is compressing.
Yes.
Like the tech moat itself is like what used to exist 5 years ago, we can now use Claude to build much quicker.
Yes.
And so physical is a moat, network effects are a moat. Obviously like training data, like that's a data moat, but the actual tech moat itself and software is collapsing. And I feel like most investors, I don't know if they're in denial about this or they don't realize it because they're not actually, like a lot of them aren't actively building.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like insane. If I was running a big fund, I would be 100% putting a ton into robotics and physical robotics because there's such big optionality on the outside of that return, right?
Yes, very much. I think this industry, especially the financial industry, needs original thinkers.
Yeah.
People should not be sheeps. They follow what the world has already done and take lessons from it, which is good up to an extent. But especially for like these kind of deep tech companies, you need to be original thinkers and you need to think about the future and be optimistic about it, right?
Yeah.
Unless you do that, the industry is not going to change. And this is very much applicable for the entire financial market in the US.
I mean, that's every prolific company, right? I think Andrew Palmer was a billionaire after Oculus, and he's still... Andrew didn't rate like the funds. If you look at their funds for Series A through B, like they didn't have like tier 1 funds for a bit. Airbnb the same way. You almost could look at any completely new innovative thing, and even Peter Thiel says this in 0 to 1. It's like the next future Google will not look like Google, but everyone's trying to invest in comps like Google. And I think that's a huge flaw in our financial market, all the way up to public markets down to like seed stage VC is like, well, what are the comps?
Very much,
Yes. And I think that's a huge weakness that causes us to be a lagger,
I hope that changes.
Yeah, I think it will. The thing I hope AI has taught us all is that there's like limitless potential in different things. And I think robotics also is going to like reinforce that.
Yes.
What do you think like put your hat on from like a military application perspective, if they're far ahead in drone technology, far ahead in robotics technology, they're catching up in the software behind the foundational models themselves. Do you see that as a national security threat, or do you think like we're going to close the gap there? Like, what do you think that means for the future of the world powers?
Yes, I think the US has to catch up on the deep tech space, like especially when it comes to robotics, because robotics is something that can be used militarized. You can actually send humanoid robots into dangerous jobs and that humans can never do. Like, because robots don't have the risk tolerance of humans, right?
Yeah.
For a human soldier to go walk into like a fiery building and rescue a person, they'll think twice. But for robots, there's no second thought. They just go in and rescue the right person. Or if they want to, execute something that's really bad, they will go and do it as it is programmed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't catch up, definitely, yeah, the defense layer is gonna fall off for this country, right? And I don't want to do that. I'm very bullish and very optimistic about the United States, and I want this country to be number one in the world, right? And that's the way to go. Even like with quantum technology, right?
Yeah.
So you can see a quantum race as well. Quantum is everything. So we all talk about AGI and artificial superintelligence and all that, right? So there are different explanations and what do you call definitions of AGI. Some of them being like, hey, like an AI that is able to reason with you. Well, for example, a Tesla Optimus come to you tomorrow, and by itself is thinking, hey, like maybe I should like know my creator, or maybe I should like just modify myself, right? So that is kind of an AGI, right?
Yeah.
And another sort of AGI is like where you can invent stuff, or like an AI that can actually think about something that has never been done before and see what is good for humanity and invent a new technology for it, right? So these are some elements of actual AGI. But Turing test and everything is very, very basic. We need to redefine that. One thing that in order for us to achieve that level of AGI, you need to change the structure of the chips.
Yes.
So right now we are transistor based. It's an on and off switch, which is like another very primitive technology, right? Our human brains are not transistors. We are quantums. So we are quantum organisms, right? Our brains think in qubits. It thinks it's conscious. It thinks about the universe. It thinks about our existence. What is our nature about, right? So we need to invest in quantum chips. Quantum chips are the ones that will actually enhance the entire capability of a nation, the defense space, the robotic space, even AI in itself. Like that's when we'll actually see a true AGI come out of. So that's my belief system. And any country who's investing in quantum and robotics is going to be the next winner for the next 100 or 200 or 500 years.
Yeah. We need to make like swag that's like my brain is quantum.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have a good friend who's at one of the big quantum chip companies, who I won't name, but they just raised a crazy amount of money. But allegedly, like Nvidia is buying like 10% of all these different quantum companies, which to me, I like look at Jensen, I'm like, oh, that's a smart hedge.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially, so if you buy Nvidia stock publicly, it's almost like an index of these like private quantum chips. And
he changed his perspective as well.
Right.
In the 2 years back in GTC, he was like, quantum is all stupid. It's not real and it's fake and all that. But last GTC, he actually did a quantum panel. He brought in all these CEOs and he was the one moderating the panel. I was there live listening to him. So his entire perspective of quantum changed. Even Elon's perspective of quantum changed. Like Sundar Pichai is very bullish on the Moderna and all the stuff like happening in quantum there as well. So almost every company is taking a leap into quantum technologies right now.
I've heard from a couple of people that the math and the science is done.
Yeah.
And that they're literally just building fabs.
And no.
And in some aspects of it, right? But like that we tangibly have quantum and we now have the synthetic. Like it's such an interesting problem because it's a material science problem, it's a mathematics problem, it's a manufacturing problem. And then all that goes into the robotics side of things.
Another thing that can be disrupted by quantum is the crypto industry. If we because binary encryptions can be decrypted by quantum in seconds.
Are they fucked, or will quantum just allow them to do quantum encryption?
Yeah, so that's what. So we don't know who the creator of Bitcoin is. If someone knows that, and if there are underlying engineers actually able to recode Bitcoin, then they will definitely have to encrypt that with quantum.
My most tinfoil hat. I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but like my most tinfoil hat view is I'm like, okay, where is the most like cryptographic talent and who could actually have pulled this off? And it's like the NSA. And then it's like, how would the NSA and CIA could basically have like a black budget if they created some sort of crypto?
Yeah.
Or some quantum AI, AGI came back and convinced us to create Bitcoin to fund itself in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Those are. I think there should be like a good sci-fi movie.
Yeah, we should.
Like,
I don't
written
think
on
we
that.
should let
Like,
AGI code like quantum or Bitcoin.
no, but like that'd be a funny way to go back and like create
Yeah.
it for yourself to fund yourself.
That is true.
Because think about it, the current breakthroughs with OpenAI and XAI and everything, they came from the graphics cards and the chips that NVIDIA was making. Before that, it was for video games because like I was a huge gamer, so like NVIDIA stuff was like the best then. But then they switched into mining, and then that's how they got better and better and better. And then now that's like
very much
for AI, right? So
that's
like,
how their stock blew up.
it's kind of weird how all that stuff is connected.
Yes, very much.
So,
yeah. Again, like what people think is not going to work out is the thing that is going to work out.
Yeah.
So like no one thought that the NVIDIA stocks are going to go bullish because of crypto. It's like totally different fields.
And now
right?
Intel's like fucked.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I would have never thought
Very
Intel
much.
would have been screwed.
Yeah, no one even believed in GPUs. Everyone's like, oh, GPUs are for kids. They're for gaming, for creating Call of Duty. There's no actual real applications. But crypto came in, AI came in. Now everything is GPUs, right? So that's a fascinating thing about technology and the market in itself.
It's such a cool time we live on. And yeah, it's just it's much better to live now than 500 years ago.
Very much.
I think that's pretty neat.
If
you had to distill the biggest principle that you downloaded in your career to date that you've brought into your business that you think would surprise my audience, like what would that be?
This is not like out of the ordinary thing, but my biggest learning from my whole career is persistence. There are a lot of things that can go wrong as you start on this entrepreneurial journey, right? Especially when you're creating things that has never existed before, or you're like spending 10 hours, 17 hours coding every day.
Yeah.
You end up speaking to a lot of people. There are like almost 80% of the people out there will discourage you. Almost 50% of the time, or even like 90% of the time, things don't work out the way you want it, right? So persistence and grit is everything, and not giving up. And that is the single metrics for success for anybody.
My framing of that is the biggest moment of why I build is companies is like it's a vehicle for my own personal growth, and it's the fastest way I can grow myself. Is by building a company, and that's why I'm addicted to it. And I realized to do that, once you frame it around that, external validation, good and bad, is meaningless.
Yeah.
And when I look at these prolific entrepreneurs who've built huge companies, I feel like they've realized how to minimize external validation, both on the positive end, because it's like, okay, you probably are like, it's probably not as good as I think. Or the negative end, which is like, you have no idea what you're thinking about. Like, keep investing in SaaS while I build robots. Thanks.
Yes, very much. Yes, totally agree. Yeah.
What's your vision for the next 5 years when it comes to robotics, AI? You're probably one of the most prolific minds that's both seen the really advanced stuff that NASA has, a cutting edge foundational model built by Elon Musk, as well as all these other robotics companies. And then you obviously have some exposure to quantum as well. So what's your read on the next 5 years?
Yeah. So what I'm focused on building for the next 5 years is definitely create an ecosystem for a physical AI. I strongly believe that people have to come together, encourage even high school students, to kids in colleges, to engineers out there in big corporates, start building on robotics. And CosmicBrain is the platform to do that. We are creating this huge marketplace that people can come and buy and sell skills, and even buy and sell robots as well. Even we are providing them the tool like Cursor for robotics to build new skills and foundation models for robotics as well. So that's my vision for the next 5 years. And along with this, there are a couple of industries that will grow exponentially. One is the chip market. So what we saw in the AI space, AI in itself requires millions of GPUs. Physical AI requires 1,000 times more GPUs. Even for one physical AI company to function optimally, you will need at least 10 million GPUs for just one company in the next 10 years.
Wow.
Right? And the storage required is massive because you need to collect all video data. Textual data is like probably 10% of the size of the data that you actually require for physical AI market.
Wow.
So there you need massive data centers. So these are all industries that will definitely boom in the next 10 years. So if you're investing, right now is the time to invest in these spaces, and that's definitely going to come up. And I'm definitely bullish on this, right? And even in quantum, so quantum might take like more than 5 years, probably like 10 to 20 years, but there will be a time when both the storage and the GPU space will be replaced by quantum, right? And that will be like you can power this whole cluster with just like a small battery pack. So that's how efficient quantum is.
Wow.
So we are getting into that direction as well. But we cannot think about quantum and discourage what is happening today. It is all in the trajectory.
So it seems like, rather than talking myopically about the US and Chinese competition, we as a world almost need to work together to get to where we want to be in the future. And we need to figure out a way to drop the like per kilowatt hour cost, because that's like a huge rate limiting factor of everything.
Yeah. Another very important factor is energy.
Mm.
Energy is what is gonna sustain everything, right? So even a 100,000 GPU cluster took the entire power of a city.
Yes.
Right, which is crazy. And today we don't have enough power. Every power station in the world combined cannot power AI today, right? That's the way in which AI data centers and GPU clusters are growing, right? We need to invest in new way of nuclear fission and fusion and all these kind of stuff to actually create renewable energy that's on a massive level. That's why Elon posts almost every day about solar panels. Like China is very bullish on solar panels. Almost every hill out there, which is not farming, is covered by solar panels right now.
Or like small format nuclear reactors. Like there's whole nuclear power companies now that you can, the radiation isn't even really toxic to you. It's like super small. It can go in the bottom of a hole. Like that's something we really need to be investing in, because I feel like we have a whole economy that is still built on like the 1800s, like coal and oil, which is wild to me.
Very wild.
And that's a huge rate limiting factor, both like environmentally, but also for the industry side of things.
Yeah, there's also some other new technologies like space energy fields. So there are space lasers, which can target solar energy, convert them into lasers, and power a thermo fission plant on Earth. Like they can heat up water and create steam and do that. And there are solar panels in space right now. So yeah, these are other technologies that will definitely see growth in the next couple of years.
Is there work around electromagnetic energy, like actually harvesting energy from the Earth's like electromagnetic field? Or
I think we need a breakthrough in that. I've read a lot of papers on that, but I don't think there's any reliable technology as of today which can generate electromagnetic power on a massive scale, which is actually useful. But maybe it's possible. I mean, who knows?
Probably the most efficient and easiest, like why Elon's going after it, is solar, because it's just like it's there. Just
that is immediate. So Elon always goes after what is immediately possible, right? So, and he also has a long-term vision, but he starts from what is now possible. Because if you put your thought and vision of what is 100 years from now, you will never do what it takes to go there, right?
That makes a ton of sense, because even when he's like building SpaceX or self-landing rockets, like that technology exists now. Someone just needed to perfect it.
Exactly.
And so he's like finding things and perfecting it, rather than our being, like, oh, we need to figure this out.
Very much.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
On the last parting thing, like what's one habit or piece of advice you'd give yourself when you're starting being a founder that you give yourself now?
Yeah, I would say, well, if I go back to, my first company I started at the age of 21, right?
Yeah.
So I was just a college kid, and I never even knew that I was going to be here at this point in time. So I would definitely go back and give some encouragement and words of wisdom, say, okay, like you're going to make it, and have that faith in yourself, believe in yourself, right? Because almost all the time when you're a founder, especially in the engineering field, you end up being depressed. Like depression and anxiety and all these things are kind of like things that engulf every entrepreneur out there, right? So it's always like having faith in yourself, and that's what I would do if I can go back in time and meet myself.
I love that. That's such a special thing to end on.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Loved having you. You're building some epic stuff. Go check out your company. Go check out some robot fights. And I want to fight with a robot now.
Absolutely.
So let's make it happen.
Do it. Yes.